I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
When they go low, we kick them.
How do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck?
The biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized to the right.
I thought he should have punched him in the face. I said, even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face.
I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Punch some people in the face!
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
Look as his character is stabbed to death.
Where is John Wilkes Booth when you need him?
That's it right there.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
A Missouri state senator is under investigation by the Secret Service after saying she hopes President Trump is assassinated.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
And sadly, the domestic enemies to our voting system and our honoring our Constitution are right at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not.
If you think we're rallying now, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Welcome, folks. This is All Minus One. I'm going to be playing that video a lot because, folks, you need to be reminded that politics are a matter of power and will, that those who control the institutions are allowed to enact violence. Those who do not, they are condemned. And this is how it works, and it's how it always works, and it is how it will always work. Folks, please like, share, and subscribe if you like my content. It helps me grow. By the way, I'm a small channel. With the giant, massive deplatforming that is going on right now, it is important that certain voices that are out there that are projecting a counter-narrative are allowed to speak. Unfortunately, Big Tech has been destroying and deplatforming so many people. People who are peaceful, like myself. I do not agree with the little bit of rioting or whatever it was going on at the Capitol building the other day, but I understand it. I understand it deeply because for years, the people who are patriots, who have been on the side of the Constitution and who have been supporters of President Trump have been demonized. Now, I'm going to show you a few videos. I'm going to do something a little bit different today than I normally do, and I'm going to work directly from some files I downloaded because I don't know what sources are going to be open, what sources are going to be available to use. I want you to see these things. This is from Carl Benjamin's, that is Sargon of Akkad's Lotus Eaters, if I'm not
I want to be clear in how I characterize this. This is mostly a protest. It is not generally speaking.
Actually, this is BG on the Scene. You can find him over at Twitter if you would like, but Carl had put this up on Lotus Eaters.
Unruly.
That ain't a riot, what we're seeing right now. Any reasonable person would say we shouldn't be destroying other people's property, but these are not reasonable times.
And please, show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Do not get it twisted and think that, oh, this is something that has never happened before, and then this is so terrible, and where are we, and these savages and all of that. This is how this country was started.
People get mad, and people get sick of it. People are risking COVID to explain to this country that we're fed up.
That, folks, was a video, of course, of what happened on Capitol Hill the other day with the overlay of sound of reporters on the left, CNN. Of course, you just heard Chris Cuomo, once again, as I played before in that other video that Cauldron Pool made, of him saying, show me where it says that they have to be peaceful. Well, here's what the president said himself that very day.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel. But go home and go home in peace.
Folks, that was from Sky News, and that was the video that Donald Trump had put up that got him banned off of Twitter, essentially, and all other platforms, because what the left must do is rewrite the narrative. Milan Kundera's talked about this in Yugoslavia, and how that this would happen through Soviet order. This is what President Trump said later on.
I would like to begin by addressing the heinous attack on the United States Capitol. Like all Americans, I am outraged by the violence, lawlessness, and mayhem. I immediately deployed the National Guard and federal law enforcement to secure the building and expel the intruders. America is and must always be a nation of law and order. The demonstrators who infiltrated the Capitol have defiled the seat of American democracy. To those who engaged in the acts of violence and destruction, you do not represent our country. And to those who broke the law, you will pay. We have just been through an intense election, and emotions are high. But now tempers must be cooled and calm restored. We must get on with the business of America. My campaign vigorously pursued every legal avenue to contest the election results. My only goal was to ensure the integrity of the vote. In so doing, I was fighting to defend American democracy. I continue to strongly believe that we must reform our election laws to verify the identity and eligibility of all voters and to ensure faith and confidence in all future elections. Now Congress has certified the results. A new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. My focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power. This moment calls for healing and reconciliation. 2020 has been a challenging time for our people. A menacing pandemic has upended the lives of our citizens, isolated millions in their homes, damaged our economy, and claimed countless lives. Defeating this pandemic and rebuilding the greatest economy on earth will require all of us working together. It will require a renewed emphasis on the civic values of patriotism, faith, charity, community, and family. We must revitalize the sacred bonds of love and loyalty that bind us together as one national family. To the citizens of our country, serving as your president has been the honor of my lifetime. And to all of my wonderful supporters, I know you are disappointed, but I also want you to know that our incredible journey is only just beginning. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
And of course, this is why they must silence him, because he's actually said things such as that. Now, again, I'm going to show you a few different videos. One of them here is people who were going to the Capitol building.
So what really happened in Washington, D.C. on the day that Trump supporters and protesters stormed the Capitol building? I was there. I saw all of it firsthand. There is so much that the media is being dishonest about. You probably know that. But there's also another major issue here, the hypocrisy, the difference between how Black Lives Matter protesters and those protests were treated over the last 7 months compared to what happened during those Capitol protests this past week. Because while those protests were very similar in a lot of ways, they're being treated like they are entirely the opposite. We're going to break down all of the myths and the lies surrounding what took place during those Capitol protests right now. I'm Ben Swan. This is Truth in Media. A little bit about what happened this week during my time in Washington, D.C. during those Capitol protests. I was there covering the Trump rally and the storming the Capitol building, and I went there immediately, spent hours on people who had been inside, people who walked out of the building carrying signs.
Now, I want you to pay attention here. What is this? This is a crowd of people standing around. No one is burning, no one is looting, no one is doing anything. Were there people who did loot? Yes. Were there people who did some things to trash the halls of the Capitol building? Yes, that happened. We must be principled and stand and say that these things are not right because one side did it versus the other. I do not play or participate in team sports, folks. I want a strong society, and a strong society can only exist if the truth exists, and we can speak truthfully about things. Now, I will be on my live show, The Ends Justify the Memes, Wednesday night, 6 p.m., speaking to Don of Plebeian Media. He was there. And Don has a maybe slightly different perspective and viewpoint. I want peace, though. I don't want more war. And I understand that war here on the home front is going to be a horrible thing, not just for all involved, but people on the outskirts. The economy will be destroyed. Your civil liberties will be destroyed. The futures of your children will not be secure. And we, folks, are on the precipice. And I'm not saying this to be hyperbolic. I am telling you now that we have time. We have time to fix things. But with the Great Reset coming, with the election of Biden and Harris, or more likely the Harris administration, and their stated Build Back Better goal, which is in line with the Great Reset, as John Kerry said specifically to the World Economic Forum on an interview, a live interview. He said that the Biden administration is committed to the Great Reset. What is the Great Reset? Well, it is the destruction of all that you know. It is the destruction of the U.S. dollar that has been inflated by 66%. I shouldn't even say that. It's not inflated by 66%. All money that has ever been printed in the United States since we have gotten off the Bretton Woods standards has been printed in the last year by over 60%. And the stated goal of the Federal Reserve is to do the same again this year. I have covered this before. You must be aware of these things because the hard times are coming. And hard times build strong men. And we need strong men out there to lead. And we need strong men to not go down to their baser instincts and be violent. We need small communities. We need to build up in that way. The only way we can have good government, folks, is to have small government. And that is the problem, is that we have an overpowerful government. If you want to go fight, go fight. I don't agree with it. But if you want to do it, then you sacrifice your life and your liberty if you must. But I am telling you now that the left has all of the institutional powers, and we live in a corporate, plutocratic oligarchy. That is the reality. The Republic died during the first Civil War, and any vestige of it that was left was destroyed by FDR. We need to quit being romantic about what this nation is. We have to understand where we are at. Without truth and without eyes that can possibly see the realities of what is going on right now, then we will be lost in the quagmire. And the only thing that will be in the wake of this is chaos, death, and destruction. If we wish to build something out of this great horribleness, it cannot be by stooping to the level of the leftist. And I'm going to show you what that level is here briefly.
signs from inside the building saying they never thought we'd get in, but we got in. There's a lot that the media is saying that's untrue. You know that by now. The media can't tell the truth to save their lives. But I want to talk about this issue. The issue of the terminology that's now being used. And I think more than anything, guys, this is the single most important part of this story. Words matter. The way that this protest is being described deeply matters. So what is the terminology that's being used? That this was a terroristic riot, that this was an act of terrorism, that this was an insurrection. Now think about that. An insurrection is an attempt to overthrow the government. That's not what this was. According to the definition that's been used over the last few months, the last 7 months, about Black Lives Matter protesters, how could we possibly call this terrorism? Keep in mind, over the last 7 months, we have watched Black Lives Matter protesters burn buildings in Minneapolis, burn buildings in Kenosha, Wisconsin, burn entire car dealerships, burn down churches, burn down private businesses. We've seen it in Minneapolis as private businesses are burned down. Macy's are looted and destroyed in California and LA.
And Ben may get to it here because I haven't watched this full video, but they've also attacked police buildings. They have burned them down. They've attacked courthouses. They've attacked federal buildings. They have attacked local government buildings, as they did in Kenosha. They have done numerous acts of terrorism. You must understand what the word terrorism means. I have been trained in terrorism. I was a counter-terrorist expert, if you would. It was part of my job and my duties as a Marine, as a young man. And what terrorism is the threat or act of violence in order to gain political means.
All over the country, we have watched this happen night after night after night for 7 months. Incredible destruction of property. Now, the left has told us, and the news media has told us now for 7 months, that this is just political protest, and it's entirely and completely appropriate. In fact, what they have said over and over is that people have a right to protest, and why are we so concerned about buildings? Why do we think buildings are more important than people's lives? And yet what we saw happen at the Capitol, now suddenly the media changes their minds, and buildings, specifically one particular building, the Capitol building, is the most sacred, important building in the world. They don't care about history because Nancy Pelosi told us that she doesn't care about statues. So when BLM protesters rip down statues that are in public places, she doesn't care. But why do we care about the Capitol building now? Suddenly this old building matters that much that it becomes an act of terrorism?
No, as they said, it was a sacred and hallowed hall. That's all of what I'm about to play of this right now. You can go watch the full segment if you want. Go look up Ben Swan. He has been active in the past, but I think he made some good cogent points there. And what I need you to understand is that the left has been calling for violence for a very, very long time. Let me play this for you very briefly. Perhaps you recall this back in 2017. Well, if it will play for me. There is currently a meme out there that goes around about who radicalized you, meaning people on the right. Well, folks, this is what happens when you have camps of folks in the street and our political system props them up and does not basically do proper policing procedures. You get radicals on both sides and war in the streets. You get factions. The reason why these people are allowed to do this, though, is because the left understands that they get to gain from it. That these people in the streets become the useful idiots, right? That they incite this, and then they get to blame the people who would be on the right wing, if you would. Why does this happen? Well, it's the same thing as what happened in Nazi Germany between the brown shirts and the black shirts. And the black shirts folks were the communists, and that's where the Antifa get their whole thing from. But the brown shirts were the Nazis, and of course they could blame the communists. We saw the same thing happening in Spain during their civil war. Let's look at a few other things from Project Veritas.
Redneck Revolt came across our radar in early 2018. We had seen some articles online about them and saw that they were sort of the militia wing of Antifa, also called the John Brown Gun Club. I reached out to the chapter in Shelby, North Carolina over Facebook Messenger, and I received a reply right away. They are Antifa in that they share the Antifa ideology. This particular group sees themselves as armed revolutionaries, and they believe in total abolition of everything, including the police. Once we were finished shooting, they needed to interview me. This was part of my initiation.
If an officer of the state came to your door and asked you questions about your political ideology and people you associate with, how would you respond?
I would say no.
If you were tabling at a gun show and someone loudly accused you of being a terrorist or part of Antifa, how would you handle it?
I probably would laugh.
And folks, this is a very common tactic amongst terrorists. They work in cells. Those of you who believe that Antifa is just some nebulous idea, you have your head in the sand or up somewhere else. I am telling you right now, it is not an idea. They've been very active, at least in the United States, since 2012, and have been growing and rising. You can find them all over Twitter. I will be doing a video on that tomorrow on some tweets and some other stuff, because I'm going to cover this all week long. Again, I'm not saying that the people at the Capitol were justified in response to these folks. What I'm saying is that we need to take a higher ground. Maybe you disagree with me. That is fine, and that is your right to do. But know this: if you go to war, there are consequences. As Christ said, those who live by the sword will die by the sword, and those who take into captivity will be taken into captivity.
So Redneck Revolt came across our radar in early 2018. Militia wing of Antifa, also called the John Brown Gun Club. I reached out to the chapter in Shelby, North Carolina over Facebook Messenger, and I received a reply right away from the leader. His name was Paul Ditz.
She's asking questions about the NRA.
Well, we're the wrong people to ask about the NRA.
Are you a member of the NRA?
Hell no.
Nope.
I hate the NRA.
Really?
The NRA is a white supremacist terrorist organization. Absolutely.
Can I quote you?
Yes.
In the ridiculousness of what these people believe, the NRA is a, basically ineffectual guns rights organization that all the time concedes to the demands of leftist and big statist in both the Republican and Democratic Party, who wish to restrict your Second Amendment rights.
They are Antifa in that they share the Antifa ideology, and it can be shared by many different groups. Typically, Antifa that you see on TV are the ones that are dressed in all black, and they go and they throw rocks or bricks and start trouble. This particular group sees themselves as armed revolutionaries. They're all about the working class, so they share this communist, anarchist ideal.
But as my partner Tank on the live show The Ends Justify the Means also always brings up about the working class, you get a working class stiff, a guy like myself, and we don't think anything like this. Those folks that have skills, that would be your plumber, your electrician, maybe your HVAC guy, carpenters, home builders, all of those things, people who make ships for a living. whatever it may be. Maybe they're deep sea fishermen. All of those things, those are working class folks. And they, my friends, are not communist at all. Communists are the bourgeois. They have convinced themselves that they are doing this for your good. The rest of those who aren't the bourgeois most likely join in because, well, they're useful idiots and they're children. I mean, emotionally, they're children. And they wish to be a part of something greater than themselves. If you know anything about Marx, Marx was an avid atheist. He hated God, wrote some quite descriptive poetry, which I believe I've talked about and covered before, about how he would destroy God with his concepts. And that is exactly what we are seeing. And we know, if any of you out there who are Christians know your scriptures, that the ways of this world are foolish, but to them, our ways, as people who follow Christ and God, the creator of the universe, are foolish. That what is up is down to them. Everything they believe is truly backwards. And this is why at some point you just cannot come to peace with their ideological worldviews. Now, we have some common ground with some things. They don't like corporations. I have problems with big, overpowerful corporations, but I understand it's the government and the corporations together that create the issue. A commie will tell you that corporations don't exist in communism. That is absolutely absurd. Every government itself is a corporation. It comes from the word corporal, to incorporate. When a town becomes its own government, they are incorporated. Recall this? Do you know this? This is basic stuff about how we organize our societies. Corporations means a body, to join together in a body. Governments are any sort of joint body that implement rules with force. You have to break down things very simply on first principles. And they cannot have their communist utopia without force and without sending you off to the gulag.
That the working class should run the country with no government. And they believe in total abolition of everything, including the police. Charlottesville was comprised of your typical Antifa black bloc measures. There were also Black Lives Matter. There were multiple chapters of Redneck Revolt that went to Charlottesville and acted as the militia wing of the anti-fascist movement. One of their missions is to arm minorities. They feel that Black Americans and minorities are disenfranchised by gun laws and permit fees. I would say probably around the third time that I met with them, they invited me to go to the gun range with them.
All right, that's enough of that. Again, go find that video. Go watch more of it because I have other stuff I want to get to. Here is another Antifa infiltrator.
I've been undercover with Real City Antifa. The violence against me.
Don't be that f***ing guy with the goddamn spiked brass knuckles getting photos taken of you. Police are going to be like, perfect, we can prosecute these f***ers. Look how violent they are. Right? Not that we're not, but we need to hide it.
It's not that we're not, it's that we need to hide it.
I'm a prospect for Rose City Antifa, and I am about halfway through the prospecting process to become a full-fledged member of Antifa.
Let me ask you something, folks. How can you become a full-fledged member of just an idea? A full-fledged member of just an idea? No. It is not just an idea. They are terrorist organizations. They are very well planned. They have been named terrorist organizations by the federal government. We know who they are. But the thing is, so they could get a couple of, I'm not sure if they're right-wing anarchists or not, but a couple of anarchists who would go to Michigan or be in Michigan, blow up bridges and kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, they can get them and infiltrate them by basically entrapping them. The federal government did this, if you recall. This was several months ago. No problem. But somehow they cannot infiltrate Antifa. I promise you, folks, this is not happening because the federal government can't get inside. It's because they are not trying. They do not care. The left has the institutional power. They run the FBI. They run the CIA. They run the NSA. They run all of the bureaucracy. They run your schools. They run the media. They own and run Hollywood. They have the largest party, the Democrat Party, the largest party in the world with the most voters. They now have both the House and the Senate and the presidency. And they are all about this new utopian Great Reset, which should be fully implemented by 2030, according to the World Economic Forum and the plans in which they take it from, which originally come from Agenda 21. Recall also Event 201, the event that took place last October as Wuhan was facing the COOF pandemic as it first broke out. And at that very time, they were stating at this tabletop exercise the exact same thing. Is this coincidence or is this conspiracy? Well, it's not conspiracy that it happened because it certainly happened. Is it coincidence? Not to my mind, when it's the most powerful people in the world planning how your life are going to be. The corporatists, the elitists, the bankers, the people who are in charge of these nations. Recall Prince Charles has endorsed the Great Reset. The Pope has endorsed the Great Reset. Boris Johnson has endorsed it. Justin Trudeau and, of course, Joe Biden and his administration have all endorsed it. And these folks who are in these terrorist organizations will continue to be allowed carte blanche to do as they wish as you go out and commit violence, if you do, on the right, and be completely condemned, locked up immediately, and found. Recall again, over the summer, what happened with Antifa. They were released over and over and over again. There was very little news coverage this past New Year's when Antifa was being crazy and Ted Wheeler decided to finally put the hammer down on them. And then he was confronted in a bar or a restaurant or whatever it was by people calling him disgusting.
If you ruin their day, if you like heckle them, you make them feel like they look ridiculous, you make them feel outnumbered, and therefore their whole yay, yay, America, Trump thing is going to go by the wayside.
They reached out to me through Proton Mail, and we went back and forth, and there was an interview set to meet up in Portland. So to verify that it was me, they had me wear a white shirt and have a water bottle and show up at a Starbucks.
Just an idea. Just an idea, folks. We can identify you by telling you how to dress, how to be secret. We're going to vet you, but it's just an idea. It's not organized in any way, shape, or form.
Where a person was going to they were getting this tradecraft from someone else, someone with much more experience, someone who
delivering a really awesome right hand, left eye blow, you know? It's not boxing, it's not kickboxing, it's like destroying your enemy.
So there was that. Here was one of Bernie Sanders' supporters talking about sending people to gulags.
And the Bernie campaign. Like, the whole basis of, like, communism is, like, people and planet above profit, right? Like, we're here to preserve the planet, preserve people. We don't want to have to, like, eliminate people, right? But if people are going to try to fight back against the revolution, like, when you hear about, like, atrocities committed by, like, in Cuba, like Fidel and Che, like, killing people, like, those people that were actively, like, they were, like, anti-revolution. They were, like, they were fighting against the revolution. Like, in any war, like, if you, like, when you guys were in war and you encountered people that were fighting against you, what did you do to those people? Right? I mean, the same thing holds true in revolution, right? Like, you can't abide people, like, actively working against your revolution. Like, you can give them a choice, be like, hey,
So, again, I know there are people on the right that think similarly, actually, but what happened at the Capitol, again, was not any sort of organized organizational effort. It was just a random thing. These folks are organized and actively trying to cause a revolution in the United States.
You can join the revolution. You can not be a bootlicker. You can sit idly by and allow it to happen. But if you're going to take up arms against the revolution, then you should expect a violent response, right? Like, it's natural. Fight or die. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What they said in the Revolutionary War. Fight or die. Yeah. And that's kind of where we're at right now. We're at one of those moments in human history where it's like, we're fighting for survival. We're fighting for the survival of the entire human race. We're fighting for the survival of living creatures on planet Earth.
And this is how you know he's an ideologue, right? Because we're fighting for survival. Now, you could say, but Bill, you talk about, surviving and whatever else. I'm telling you to be safe, to be aware, and to stay out of trouble, and that you don't want these things, and you want your political leaders to be going after these folks. Unfortunately, they don't care. They don't care. They want the revolutions because it will give them more power. You must understand this. You must understand how these things actually work and how they actually play out.
Earth, and there's some people that will stop at nothing to preserve that, right? Like, to see the human race continue into the future, right? To try to save the.
I promise, Mr. Jurek, that any human race continuing into the future, anything about the human race continuing in the future, has nothing to do with communism. Because communism stifles innovation, it eliminates competition, it basically impoverishes everybody except for the political class who have all the power, so it creates the bourgeois. And it holds them up. And he will be put against the wall. It happens every single time. We have the history, folks. What happened in the French Revolution? Well, eventually the revolutionaries themselves got the guillotine.
Planet from destruction. And no matter what country or what laws that exist, they're irrelevant to. There are things greater than those systems, right? Right. There are things that are more important than the rule of law in the United States when it comes down to the existence of a human race. And that's where we're at, unfortunately. And there are probably no other points in human history, in recorded human history, where the stakes were as high as they are right now.
Why though? Why are they this high? I can tell you right now that they're only high because of actors like this, individuals.
Cities burn. What we gotta do? Yeah, I mean, we don't have a lot of time left. We have to save human civilization
by destroying it.
And obviously, Trump don't give two about making sure that the world doesn't.
Guys like that.
He's talking about environmentalism, folks, and you have to understand that environmentalism is a radical left-wing position. You can be an environmentalist on the right, but people on the right actually do good environmentalism because we understand things. We don't have these crazy ideas. This guy is ideologically possessed. He has evil thoughts. He wants to kill people in order to save things. That's not how it works. And this radical environmentalism that he is preaching basically has nothing to do with Trump, what Trump did under his administration, or what had happened with our emissions. We actually lowered carbon emissions far more than we ever would have, according to the Paris Climate Accord. But again, he's an ideologue. He does not research and absorb information. He only wants blood.
What are we gonna do with them? Gulag. Liberals get to fucking wall first. What are we gonna do with those people that resist the change? Because that's a big deal.
Well, I'll tell you what. In Cuba, what do they do to reactionaries?
They shot them on the beach.
Like the Antifa sticker on your laptop. Have you ever been in any of those crazy?
There was a couple things that events they came to Lansing and they came to Ann Arbor. I was there for those.
Did you ever help out or participate in any of it?
Yeah, I mean I didn't help organize it.
Right.
But I was there in support. I have yet to punch a Nazi.
Listen, it's a badge of honor. I've yet to punch a Nazi. Well, the people you're punching probably aren't Nazis, and you don't understand what Nazism is, because if you did, you would understand you have more in common with them than you do the average free marketeer.
There's some here. A lot of them are probably on the Bernie campaign. But there are some there's a DSA chapter here, so some of the DSA folks are probably engaged.
In any case, you can watch all of these at Project Veritas. Here is a New York City Fight Club training.
If you get a good liver or kidney shot, it's pretty much crippling. You're going to be doubled over in a lot of pain. If you break one of the floating ribs, which are small right down here, those are also very painful. It's hard to move after that. It's hard to catch your breath. So one good body shot could potentially give you all the time in the world to run away while they're doubled over in pain. Or
not by that little tiny girl right there, though. There's no way. She better do a kick.
In the space, reframe the idea of self-defense as not simply you're being acted upon by an aggressor, but it's a kind of a decision you make to fight back. In a lot of ways to say, I'm human and I occupy this space and I'll be not with my nose, side of my head. If I come into you, you could definitely do it for sure. But from here and just feel and then you want to follow it up with something else. Yeah. So if that doesn't knock them out, then the nose, the face, the eye, poke the eye.
Now, the stuff that they're showing is basic combative stuff, and I doubt they train very well, very good, very hard. I've watched militia video, people who they would call themselves 3%ers that wish to uphold the Constitution, and their training, it's usually not very good. If you want good training, folks, you want to learn martial arts, go do some legitimate martial arts where you actually have to wrestle and fight with people in a controlled environment, because that is the only way you're actually going to learn. But again,
we call this a safe space to practice aggression, not aggression against one another, but really just a space that if you want to.
But these people are getting together in these little circles, in these little clubs. They're training, they're shooting, they're trying to essentially bolster themselves up. Now, I guess I want to play one more video before I get out of here. And that is, well, I'm going to play two more, I think. This is Remember those names, folks, because this has happened before. And history does repeat. It all like it. Doesn't seem like it, because who has the institutional power? And on the 20th, guess who will be the president? Joe Biden. And what does that mean? Well, he will dictate what the Department of Justice does. So there is that. And then finally, lastly, but not least, we have here...
So this is coming from
Parler.
everywhere all of a sudden, and we're going to unpack what we know at this hour. But we do know that over the last 24 hours, Twitter specifically has banned a number of different conservative accounts, not just the president. At the same time, the Chinese Communist Party, the Ayatollah of Iran, still have their accounts because they're not a threat to the ruling party here. Tonight, a competing social media service, Parler, which we told you about, is seeing massive and unprecedented surge in traffic. The site even experienced server outage because of new users tonight. Why? A couple of reasons. Mostly this: Parler is a free speech alternative to Twitter. They don't censor you, you can say what you want. The president is on Parler, and that has drawn a lot of people who realize they are being suppressed by Twitter. Parler's succeeding. What happens now? Of course, Silicon Valley is trying to kill it. Google has just removed Parler without any warning from its App Store. Apple and Amazon, which provide services that keep services like Parler online, have also threatened to shut Parler down. Amy Peikoff is the chief policy advisor at Parler, and she joins us tonight. Amy, thanks so much for coming on. This seemed to come out of nowhere. How big a threat to your company is this?
I mean, this is very huge because Apple in particular carries our app on the App Store, and as far as I know, technically there's no other way to deliver it. So if they choose to withdraw their services and hosting us on their store, we're toast there. And you know, most people like our app. Our app is a very nicely functioning piece of software. And then in terms of Amazon is also raising some problems, and I'm not sure how serious that is yet because I've yet to speak with them. I will later today. And they provide server for us, and if they were to remove their services, then we'd be down. As it is, we're having some difficulties now with the uptick in traffic, but if they took their service away, we'd be gone.
And that's exactly what they did. Dan Bongino covered this earlier today on his show. He is an investor in Parler, and they are trying to work it out. They say they will be back up in a week or so. But this is what the left does. They wish to destroy everything and own everything and control your mind. They are authoritarians. Do not listen to the, oh, you don't like anti-fascist? Oh, you're a fascist, as they are authoritarians. As they are autocrats, they believe they have the right to do such a thing. And need I remind you of this and what our government's some of the most powerful influential
I just
people
don't even know
have
why
called
there
for.
aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
Need I remind you,
People need to start
this is MSNBC.
This is a dictator.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be
Polite and peaceful. Yes, this is CNN.
And peaceful?
Do something about your
This is
dad's
the media.
immigration
This
practices.
is supposedly a comedian who's not funny.
How do you resist
The
the
former
temptation
Attorney
to run
General.
up and wring her neck?
Biggest terror threat in this country is white men.
Overt bigotry, which is untrue.
Most of them radicalized right up to the right.
I thought he should have punched him in the face. I said, even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
The soon-to-be president?
Some people in the face.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
Look as his character is stabbed to death.
Where is John Wilkes Booth when you need him?
I have thought an awful...
It's enough of this garbage. Maxine Waters, of course, comes up here soon. Look, guys. I know most of you are aware. But those who aren't, you need to make them aware. Because I'm sure that you have loved ones, people you care about, who have no clue what's going on and completely off in left field with things. I get most people aren't me. I'm watching this stuff 8, 10, 12 hours a day. But even myself, with this obsession to know what's going on, I am taking breaks because it's good for the mental health. What happened in Washington last Wednesday on the 6th was not good. It was not good for people on the right, and it gave fuel to the fire for the left. You cannot be tactically and strategically sound if you are just going to go in and do something crazy like what happened and not expect there to be a giant backlash. Now, I know there are folks on the right who believe that it was a good thing. I don't think so. I think it was an escalation to deperson all of you who don't agree. And as I just showed you some videos of the revolutionaries, they find it completely justified, despite having all of the institutional power, which they do. They think they don't because they're crazy nut jobs and have no clue, and they have dark souls and just want to watch the world burn. Sometimes that is the way it is. I have seen the face of evil many a times in my life, folks. I kid you not. I have stared into the dead eyes of murderers. I can tell you right now, these folks aren't any different. Some of them are lost. Some of them find their way. I'm going to play some videos later on this week of a former Antifa member who, of course, left and now speaks out against the organization. But he will tell you that he was a drifting young kid, easily influenced, and partially was sucked in because of the emotional arguments that they make about race. Your ethnicity, folks, is not a factor here. I can promise you. There should be no special privileges because you have a certain ethnicity over any other ethnicity. The way that the Constitution works, that it is supposed to work, the rule of law in a republic, in a free society, in a strong society, is that all people are treated the same. And folks, communism is nothing but slavery with a couple extra steps. That is pretty much it. But with all that, folks, this has been All Minus One. Hey, go over to YouTube, see the Ends Justify the Memes on Wednesday nights, usually at 7 p.m. This Wednesday, that is January 13th. We will be on at 6 p.m. to accommodate Don from Plebeian Media. He should be with us for the full 2 hours. We'll be discussing many things, including the march on Capitol Hill that happened last Wednesday. You can find us also on DLive, Ends_Justify Memes. I have a locals page as well, All Minus One, and a Rumble. I'm working on other alternative tech media because if I grow in any way, shape, or form, it is very likely I will be axed. Dave Cullen of Computing Forever, which I have used many a times on here, who does great content, was axed from YouTube the other week. It is coming for us all, folks. You are not allowed to have the the improper ideas. If they are not leftist ideas, you are not allowed to function in society. It is absolutely evil, but it is here, and it will continue to grow. This is a beast that's head will not be cut off. You have to understand this. And I know many people on the right think that they can just go out and destroy it. No. The only thing we can do is create our own separate communities, take care of our families, stock up, make sure we have our ammunition for either defense, if that's what, your proclivity, or to hunt, and keep our families safe. And we can pray that this suffering, the Lord will end for us sooner or later. Because I'm telling you right now, the institutions are far more powerful and far more organized than you can possibly imagine. Just remember Edward Snowden. Remember Snowden and everything that he released, showing how they spy on us regularly. You think big tech doesn't work with the government? Of course it does. Folks, things are very serious right now. And again, this is not hyperbole. This is to get you to understand, to get you to wake up, to get you prepared, to get you to start spending your money correctly, because we are about to go into a great financial crisis. By the end of this year, mark my words, we will be in an upside down economy, and the only people that will have wealth are the upper percentiles. And they will be telling you that you need to be a Marxist. And there will be more uprisings, and there will be more bloodshed in the street. And fortunately, it has not come to full-on gunfights, but this will occur. And eventually it will be people fighting the very government itself. And I don't mean just the police. I mean military, National Guard. It's going to get very bad. Be prepared. With all that, I got to tell you, folks, God bless. Keep your head up and be well.